It's gonna take all of us to heal this world. It's gonna take all of us.
We have an exciting program for you. And again, guys, don't forget to scan this QR code and send your questions in, as it helps shape our program, and we love hearing from you. Check it out.
Hi, I am Mavi from Brazil. I have 10 years old and I come to COP28. I think it's really important to be here because I want people listen to me, because I have a lot of things to say, and to protect the environment, because it's not a gang thing. It's a really serious thing. The earth, it's sick because of pollution, trash, and a lot more. So we need to protect our planet, because the future generation, that is us, the younger people, will have problems with the earth and environment. Make the difference with us, because all by ourselves we can try to make the change, but we need a lot of help to change the world. If I have one message from my generation, I will say, help us to make the difference and have a bright planet and a really beautiful planet on next generations. Whenever you're here in COP28, the more important thing to me was when I was talking with persons and said that it was really important to take care of the environment.
Hi, I'm Tim Lenton. I'm a professor of climate change at the University of Exeter in the UK, and for 20 years I've been identifying the climate tipping points that we risk crossing with global warming. And in just the last 5 years or so, I've also been identifying the positive tipping points that are starting to happen that accelerate the change we need to shut down greenhouse gas emissions. And because of that, I'm just here today launching, as the lead editor, our first of its kind global tipping points report that tries to update the world on the status of both the bad climate tipping points and the positive tipping points in economy, society, and the transformation we need. Well, the scientific data is pretty clear that we're in the danger zone now for passing 5 major tipping points in the climate. That includes tipping the loss of the Greenland and West Antarctic ice sheets, making a long-term commitment to more than 10 metres of sea level rise. It includes losing the coral reefs in the tropics, which 500 million or more people depend on for their livelihoods. It means tipping the abrupt loss of the permafrost, which adds to global warming, releasing CO2 and methane to the atmosphere. And finally, there's a tipping point in the North Atlantic Ocean circulation that's at risk. And if that goes, well, a country like my own, the UK, will be plunged into a way more seasonal climate like British Columbia and Canada that we're totally not adapted for. As a scientist, there's a definite concern that we're in a setting here of a UN process that doesn't just listen to the science. It has all sorts of political and vested interests at work as well. And whilst there's some acknowledgement of the science, there's clearly some problems, because in essence, you can't negotiate with the climate. You can't negotiate the fact that we have to stop all greenhouse gas emissions if we need it to stop global warming. So there is no alternative to eliminating fossil fuel burning and stopping deforestation to stop global warming. And until the negotiators are absolutely clear on those incontrovertible scientific facts, then we're still in a dangerous place, aren't we? If we don't act decisively now on the bad climate tipping points, I fear that sometime in the 2030s, they'll be really starting to arrive or to bite, and we'll really know about it. And then unfortunately, we just run the risk of a sort of downward spiral where our energies, such as they are, get sucked into trying to deal with increasing climate catastrophes as they unfold. We've got to act now to try to avoid heading down that path. And I do see positive evidence that we're seeing an accelerating uptake of renewable energy. Solar and wind worldwide is the cheapest form of power there's ever been. Also accelerating transition to electric vehicles worldwide. And I want us in the 2030s to already be there for those major sectors of renewable electricity and electrified road transport, and to be in the middle of pushing a faster transition for the next sectors and the next ones. So be in the middle of innovating exponential growth of green hydrogen, green ammonia, for fertilizer, for shipping, for decarbonising steel production. Be in the middle of a positive tipping point to alternative proteins, liberating land back for nature, positively tipping the regeneration of previously deforested ecosystems, and so on and so forth. In that way, we might actually be standing a chance of getting onto a sustainable path of flourishing. But it's decision time now between these two very different futures. I think my message to young people, having kids of 12 and 14 of my own, is that don't be totally despairing about the climate crisis. I feel your pain. I study this stuff all the time. I'm traumatized by the changes that are unfolding in the climate. But there's an optimism in me that also comes from the scientific evidence I see that change is already accelerating towards the clean technologies and changes of behavior that we need to get to a sustainable, flourishing place. And we can all play a part in being part of that positive tipping point change. Even if we're just citizen activists or consumers, we have a role to play in bringing forward the new technologies and the changes. The more we get behind them, the better and the cheaper they'll get, and the more they'll accelerate and come to dominate. So let's all work together, whether young people or middle-aged like me, whether academics or policy experts or young social activists protesting on the streets. Let's come together, because together, with the media shining a light on our message, we might stand a chance to tip the change we need onto the positive trajectory in a way from what otherwise is a very, very depressing climate and ecological crisis. It's going to take all of us.
So my name is Sylvain Philippi, Managing Director of the Envision Racing Formula E team. So you can see behind me our recovery car, which we unveiled this past summer in London at the Formula E race, Formula E finale. So as you can see, it's a replica of our championship winning Formula E race car from Envision Racing. But it's a replica made of e-waste. So the idea of this car is that we want to raise awareness about electronic waste, which is forecast to reach 75 million tons by 2030, so it's a very significant issue. And we want to raise awareness for two reasons, really, because first, of course, e-waste is very bad for the environment when it's not disposed of properly, but also there are a lot of very valuable materials in all our electronics and laptops and so on, lithium and many others. And we need these materials to accelerate the energy transition. And we need them for batteries, for renewable energy, for all these things. So we need to get into a mindset collectively that, electronics can last a lot longer than people think, and when we don't want to use them anymore, they need to be recycled so we can reuse these materials again. It has a benefit for the environment, but also economically, it will help make the next generation of products. So like any environment, it's a complex system. The regulations come into place, like for example, going to one standard, USB-C charger helps, but also down the chain, we need to make sure that if we don't need or don't use electronics anymore, they can be given to like associations and charities that actually will use these same electronics for a lot longer in other applications. And then if not, they need to be recycled. So we need to get into their mindsets, and then there will be another good step. My team has been at COP now for the last 3 years, so since Glasgow. So we were lucky to exhibit our Formula E race car. But yeah, this year, instead of showcasing our race car, which is obviously amazing from an EV point of view, we wanted to showcase this because, as you said, it's all linked. We need to transition the world to electric mobility and renewable energy, but we cannot do that by wasting more. We also need to tackle the other end of the chain. So, doing all this here at COP makes sense because we are looking at system solving, and then this is the other part of the chain. So we hope we can use the amazing media platform that Formula E is where we reach more than 400 million people every year watching the races. So we want to use that media platform to showcase e-waste, and of course being at COP is the logical place to be. In my field, my world, it's all about engineering and innovation. So we actually work with a number of universities, and ultimately the new generation of engineers will be needed to solve all these problems. So mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, batteries, chemistry, all these fields at the moment have a shortage of talent. So it's really important for the younger generation to kind of come in and help us do this, because we have all these ideas, we know how to solve most things, but it's all about execution and implementation. So even though it needs to happen now as quickly as possible, there is a huge opportunity for the younger generation to come in and tackle this project, because there is no shortage of work. It's really about executing and implementing, whether it's wind turbine farms or solar panels or batteries or electric cars. There's a lot of work to be done. So yeah, anyone who's passionate about engineering and STEM has a bright future for sure.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here. Thank you very much for joining us. I sort of feel we always have to start these meetings by congratulating people on finding the room in this enormous COP. So lovely to see you. I suppose we all know what we're doing now, a week in. So my name is Tom Rivik-Karnak. I am a co-founder of a small organization called Global Optimism. I founded Global Optimism together with Christiana Figueres, who is probably known to most of you as the former executive secretary, when we left the UN after adopting the Paris Agreement in 2016. And since then, we've done a variety of strategic things, working with individuals and organizations who are undertaking work that we think of as critical. And we were delighted a few years ago when we were approached by Amazon, who said that they wanted to prove us wrong, that 2050 was the year we could decarbonize by, and actually they thought we could do it by 2040. So Christiana always says she's never been more delighted to be proved wrong than this, and so that was the creation of the Climate Pledge, which has since grown into a community of hundreds of companies coming together to collaborate, to work on practical projects to drive down emissions and get us to net zero by 2040. So it's been a big part of our work for the last few years, and delighted to be here today with colleagues from Amazon and from C40. And the topic today is around freight. Now, many of you may not know, or maybe you do, that freight is already 8% of global emissions and is on track to be the largest emitting sector by the middle of the century. This is a huge issue, and we need to have systemic and strategic solutions to actually advance practical projects to deal with that. So that's what this is about. It's about this lane shift project, which is a partnership between the Climate Pledge and C40 to work collaboratively with cities.
We're really excited at C40. This is exactly where we want to be. The big cities of the world collaborating together to drive. For us, our real focus is halving emissions by 2030, but working with the biggest mission-driven companies in the world is really the way that we have a chance of delivering against that really now difficult halving emissions in a very short space of year. I think the exciting thing in this project for me is the opportunity for regulation, for investment, for policy at a city level to create opportunity for those businesses that really are committed to that same mission of getting to net zero. And freight is a sort of rapidly electrifying freight, or getting to zero emission freight is a rapidly emerging opportunity, but we can see what's being delivered when cities and business work together in so many other sectors. The way, I'm sure Carolina will talk about it, the way that the electric bus market in Latin America has so rapidly moved by mayors standing up and saying we only want to buy electric buses, even though at that point bus manufacturers were not supplying them into Latin America, but creating, shaping that market all the way in North America and Australia, city governments regulating so there are no new gas installations for heat into buildings, and creating markets for heat pumps. Or I've just been out in East Asia, where now a series of the major ports in the world are allying to create green shipping lanes, first between Shanghai and Los Angeles, Singapore and Los Angeles, Melbourne and Shanghai, again creating, shaping new markets all the way. Or Sandoval, we were talking around water, now a group of C40 cities all come together to collectively show how they're going to tackle the problems of drought and indeed flooding, requiring huge amounts of engineering and nature-based solutions to do so. So I certainly think we're going to need to build down, but hopefully that's not where people are going to live, right? That's where the data storage should be. That's where there should be the emergency shelters when there's extreme heat events. That's where we should put a lot of logistics. But actually, I think the above-ground nature-based infrastructure is really going to be critical to future cities. The benefits of trees for providing shade, for sequestering carbon emissions, for taking away air pollution, but also just for mental well-being, for health. Now, still, in the way we've evolved, we basically look for the place where there's trees, and there's water, and there's open space. And that's what cities are going to need to provide in the future.
Actually have our great creative velo here on our interview venue at COP28. What is great, because it was a lot of trouble to get it here, to get it into the Emirates, but we did it, and so we're interviewing people. Everyone's coming around asking, what is this bike? And I can tell you, it's a workshop. It's just a moving workshop, so we teach young people, students, how to do films, how to do movies, and we always have our whole editing studio and even our presentation ready, because it has a nice flat screen inside. We have solar power, we can do live shows everywhere in the world, and also in India. The people with our creative velo from Luxembourg as a role model built their own velos actually, so they toured all around India. I think they did over 15,000 kilometers in some weeks, really bringing forward the issue of climate change with our creative velo.
My name is Pooji Masareddy. I'm a young climate activist at the organization Action for the Climate Emergency, where I'm a youth advisory board member there. I'm originally from outside of Philadelphia, but I go to school in Connecticut at Wesleyan University. I'm a second-year student studying economics and data analysis. I got started in the climate movement with the organization Action for the Climate Emergency back in 2019. I was first a fellow there, and then over the years, after doing a lot of voter registration work, I focused on climate justice work as well as campaigns, and I did a lot of grassroots organizing in Philadelphia around a toxic waste incinerator. We are resisting that waste incinerator because it pollutes the health of residents in that community. The intersection of public health and climate change is what I'm most passionate about, mostly because without our health, we cannot function as a society, and our economies will fail. And so to me, there's really nothing more important than protecting the well-being of our communities and our health. So currently I'm at Action for the Climate Emergency, and I'm excited to be here at COP and speaking with you.
Oh, I see you have done a number of activities. What are some of your concerns about climate crisis?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, I think looking at the climate crisis through the lens of public health is super important. And I think we need to emphasize that more because, like I mentioned, there's nothing more important than protecting our health. And so for me, the areas of focus that are of most concern is reducing and phasing out fossil fuel industries. I think converting and transitioning to renewable energy is what we need in order to limit our threshold to that 1.5 degrees Celsius, unless we totally change how we view the energy sector. I don't know if we're going to reach that goal. And so to me, I think phasing out fossil fuels is a key area that we need to be focusing on.
I see you have come at COP28, and as a youth activist, the world is watching you, the world is seeing you. What are some of the missions why you have come at COP28, and what's your impact here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think as a young person, I think it's important for young people to kind of connect with one another and build that community, because I think a lot of us have climate anxiety around the future, and we often feel powerless because we're not in positions of power and we don't have a seat at the table where decisions are being made. And so for me, being at COP is I feel very fortunate and very grateful to have this opportunity. And so my main goal is to be connected with the youth, and for us to build a stronger base globally, and so that, you know, even though we are being seen as powerless or do not have the decision-making abilities right now, just know that the youth are on the rise, and that it's our turn to really cause the change that we want to see.
Youth must create change. What are some of the climate solutions you have conducted in your community with your fellow youth?
Yeah, so a lot of my work at Action for the Climate Emergency is based around campaigns, and so I worked on a fossil fuel phase-out campaign, and so a lot of that work is around getting young people mobilized. We have what's known as action teams, which are localized chapters across the United States, and the goal of those are to really localize climate change issues. Every community is different, and every community faces a different set of struggles, and so what we want to do is mobilize the youth in that area to take action. For me, that meant resisting a toxic waste incinerator, and that is an uphill battle every day because of the different political forces and the corporate forces that community is up against, and that community is not an outlier in the data set. There are so many communities just like that facing so much struggle due to big polluters in their communities, and so for me, my main goal at ACE is to really mobilize young people to take action in their local communities.
Mobilizing young people in the community. We are here at COP, and we are in the middle of the COP processes. World leaders have spoken, they have made pledges. Are the demands of the youth fulfilled according to you, and for some of the last days at COP?
I don't think all the demands have been fulfilled yet by any means. I think huge wins have been made, especially with the Loss and Damage Fund being approved. I think that is something that young people and so many groups have worked tirelessly for, and so it is very rewarding and fulfilling to see that finally be approved. But at the same time, there's still a long way to go, as we all know, and it is discouraging to see how the president of COP recently said that there's quote-unquote no science behind a fossil fuel phase out. I think that language is pushing us back instead of forward, and so that's definitely discouraging to hear, and I know young people feel that way. And so the way I see it is that we're at a very pivotal point right now. We need to act with a sense of urgency, with a sense of purpose, but at the same time, I see it as an opportunity. I think governments have the opportunity to really step up in a big way. I think corporations have a major opportunity to invest in climate startups, to invest in new infrastructures that are going to be climate resilient. I think young people have the opportunity to really build a future that their children, grandchildren would want to live in. So the way I see it is we are at a very, very crucial point right now, and the way we act will determine our future and our children's future. My personal takeaway is mostly going to be having a better understanding of what climate finance means to me. That's a sector that I'm very interested in, and so hearing from different companies and how they have major plans to invest in climate finance and how banks can finance the climate transition, if you will, I think that's a major takeaway for me and something that I want to learn more about. And also just having the privilege of hearing from youth organizers and indigenous voices here at COP, I think that's so crucial, and we need to be continuing to uplift those voices because ultimately they are at the front line of the climate crisis, and they know their communities best, and we need to listen to them. I think the report card does not look very well. I think that the global north has a huge responsibility here because so many countries in the global north are some of the top polluters in the world. And so they have a key job in COP and beyond to really mitigate and prevent future pollution and future exploitation of the global south. And so you asked me, how does the report card look? Not well, and there's still so much work to be done in order to change that, in order to improve, and I think the global north has a huge role to play in that.
The world knows the youth are the first generation to face climate crisis, and it's the last generation to fight this climate crisis. We are the last people to fight it, and we're the first to experience it. I want your last message to the youth in the world globally, in Africa, Asia, America, your last message.
I think my last message would be that we are so much stronger together, and that no one person can tackle this climate crisis, no matter how many resources or how much money they have. This is a collective effort, and we need everyone from every corner of the world to come together. And what that means to me is learning about what organizations are in your local community. There's so many and so much work already going on in your community. So it's all about plugging into those organizations and reaching out to people who are already passionate and doing this work, seeing how you can be of aid to them. And that's really how you build those communities of activists. And I think that's what's so crucial and what will drive change. It takes all of us.
Hi, I'm David. I'm here at COP28 with Youth4Planet as a young reporter, and I'm very happy and delighted to see that as a youth, and I'm hearing about the COP processes and everything which is happening. I just want to tell you that the youth and this generation, we are the first generation to be affected by climate change, and we are the last generation to fix this mess which is happening. I've been training a number of youth into the COP processes in my country, Uganda, and also other countries in East Africa. But whenever I tell the youth is to utilize the spaces they get at the global level to see that their voices are amplified. And under Youth4Planet, I did that role to see that voices are amplified, speaking with the world leaders, speaking with the private sector, youth negotiators from Global South and from Asian countries. So we want to see that a number of voices are heard, and what the world leaders have to know that they need to stop the emissions, and also we need to make sure that 1.5 degrees Celsius is limited using a number of solutions and also pledges. I was very happy to hear about the pledge made by different countries on loss and damage on the first days of COP28. And in Sharm el-Sheikh at COP27, this is when loss and damage was brought up in the conversations. In the first days, we saw that countries are pledging. For example, we saw Germany over $100 million US, USA $17 million, and also UAE committing $100 million. So far, over 57 billions have been committed to the loss and damage, to climate finance in this COP, to see that emissions are reduced, vulnerable communities are being reached to, so that the climate crisis is reduced. For me personally, it has been interesting mornings every day here at COP. I've learned a lot. We have filmed a number of youth activists. I've filmed a number of environmentalists, high-level people here at COP, and also listening, being in plenaries to see that a number of decisions are taken, and also asking the youth what their role on the decisions made, their voices, what role they play. So personally, I've seen that a number of amplified voices have to come up. Organizations like Youth4Planet have to bring it more to see that they are funded more so that the voices come up. And I've worked with I've worked with a number of those organizations, filming. Personally, I've got experience, I've seen it all, and I have to go back and I share with the fellow youth in my country, online and also physically.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, please do send in your questions, as it makes all the difference to the show. And I'll see you tomorrow.
It's gonna take all of